get started right off the rip. Take a look at this top 25 that, my goodness, I probably spent way too much time trying to put together. All right. Number 1, the defending national champion 2 times over, the Georgia Bulldogs. The way I want to get into this is Kirby Smart walked into Compton, California just last weekend and pulled out the number 4 running back in the 2024 class. That is what happens when you are not just a national brand, but you are the unquestioned czar in this here sport, okay? The sport belongs to the Georgia Bulldogs. That's it. That's all of it. Even with Todd Monken going to the NFL, Stetson Bennett, 2-time national champion quarterback, going to the NFL. I think what we're really talking about is not just the 29-1 record that they put together over the last 2 years, or the number of draft picks that they put into the NFL, or that Kirby Smart built this thing the way that he was taught to build it at Alabama and has done basically a better version of Nick Saban in the last couple of years. It's that Mike Bobo is going to be tasked with not breaking what doesn't need fixing, okay? That offense does exactly what it needs to do for that defense to go out there and do what it needs to do. And as teams continue to get better in that league, Tennessee being one of them, LSU being another, Georgia continues to stay a cut above. Now it's once again about keeping hold of being the unquestioned lord of the sport. And that's going to start in earnest here in just a couple weeks' time. Number 2 on the list, you see them right there. It's the Michigan Wolverines. That is, for me, the second best team in all of college football for all the reasons that I would normally have dinged somebody. They went and fixed all that stuff. Look, they got a quarterback that can absolutely play in J.J. McCarthy, who won the job during the season and then turned out to be one of the better play-action passers that we've seen in the sport. He is got 2 outstanding tailbacks in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, who absolutely can carry the load. It's one thing for Blake Corum to put together the kind of Heisman caliber season that he did before his injury. It's another for Donovan Edwards to be able to go for 216 over Ohio State's dead body. That's the long and the short of it. You're also talking about a team that has really fallen short of expectations just once, because I don't think many people expected to see the 2021 season that they had, yet they had it, right? And then 2022, they ran it back to prove it ain't no fluke, win the Big Ten title, go into the college football playoff 13-0, and then get beat by Texas Christian. And here's the rub. Texas Christian was 5-7 in 2021. Texas Christian had a new head coach, had the second-string quarterback starting most of the games. Texas Christian put up 51 on Michigan in a win, the Fiesta Bowl, to get to the national championship. So every time you hear me talk, you hear me say Texas Christian is the national title runner-up. And you also hear me say Michigan lost to them. That can't happen anymore. That's where you are now, Michigan. We are expecting you. I am expecting you. You're number 2 here. I am expecting you to be in the national championship game. That's what we do when we put together these preseason rankings. It is up to you to follow through. That means you got to do what you haven't done in Michigan history, and that is win a college football semifinal, which really doesn't make you much different than USC and Lincoln Riley. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But before we do, let's go to number 3, Ohio State. Look, for me, it's not that we are saying that the Big Ten no longer belongs to Ohio State. It's that it's up to them to take it back. We thought we were going to see some sort of real redemptive go at Michigan at the shoe last year. It did not come into fruition. One of the major reasons that Ohio State failed to win that game, and by extension, the Big Ten championship, but also, right, got its way into the college football playoff, is the offense. We knew what C.J. Stroud was about. Marvin Harrison Jr. turned out to be the best wide receiver on that team, even as we expected Jackson Smith and Jigba to be a Heisman caliber player. Didn't play much. Travion Henderson was hurt some of the year. Mayan Williams was hurt some of the year, but they're losing Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones on that offensive line. Still, the offense goes, right? And that's the reason why they were this close to beating the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs, a missed field goal, one play short at the stroke of midnight. Even so, they lost that game to Michigan, right? And they lost the game to Georgia. Why? Wasn't the offense's fault. Defense has got to keep a lid on it. That's the long and the short of it. I mean, I went into this in some length, but you heard it when I spoke to Ryan Day at Big Ten Media Days. They're as close as they've been since 2019 to having an outstanding defense, and that is what they have been missing. What Jeff Hafley, Jace Young, and those guys were able to do in 2019, they have not been able to replicate in the Ryan Day era. And we're talking about the Buckeyes, who gave up an average of 39.3 points to top 15 opponents last year. 39. They gave up 42 to Michigan, and 45 to Georgia. You got to keep a lid on it. You can't allow these big plays to happen. No doubt, no one doubts that that Ohio State has everything they have or need to beat Michigan. It's whether or not they can put it together, right? And I think that game, once again, will have national championship implications. We already know that it's going to have college football playoff implications. All they got to do is keep up their ends and make it to the rest of that, through the rest of that schedule undefeated. Now, let's go to number 4. You're going to see USC here. I like USC in this spot for the same reason that I liked Oklahoma in this spot in 2017, 2018, 2019. We know that they have the best quarterback in the sport. Unquestionably. He's got the Heisman Trophy to prove it. Okay? We know that Lincoln Riley is one of the best developer of quarterbacks and best play callers in the sport, right? He's made the college football playoff. He's won conference championships. He has not done that at USC. However, he did flip a 4-8 program to an 11-3 program. And he did that primarily by having an outstanding offense and outstanding play from his quarterback. Even so, the Achilles heel for USC is the same one for Ohio State. It's what the defense can or can't do. And as bad as Ohio State's defense was last year, it was not as bad as USC's. We are talking about an Alex Grinch defense that gave up 47 in a loss Pac-12 championship to Utah and 46 in a loss in the Cotton Bowl to Tulane. Okay? Now, Tulane's a good football team, and most people will tell you that. But we in college football care about blue bloods and brands, and there's not one in which Tulane is supposed to beat the blue blood that is USC. That can't happen. But the reason that it did is you gave up all of these points and all this yardage, particularly in the fourth quarter. Really interesting note from Bruce Feldman in a story he wrote for The Athletic. The USC Trojans gave up an average of 16.5 points in the fourth quarter of their last 4 games last year. You can't even keep a lid on it when it's time to keep a lid on it. That's got to change. Alex Grinch has never had a top 15 defense since Oklahoma or SC. The best he was able to do was 28th while working for Riley, and that's in the junk statistical year that is 2020. To win national championships, you have to have a top 15 defense and a top 15 offense. You cannot win national championships without having both. The closest that we got to this is Cam Newton at Store Brand Auburn, where he carried that 2010 team to a national championship with the number 22 defense scoring related. Remarkable feat. One of the reasons why Cam Newton is one of the best college football players of all time. If Caleb Williams can do the same, it's not just that we're going to be rewriting the books on Lincoln Riley and SC. It's that we're going to be writing the college football all-time greats list. Caleb Williams can put that together, even at a place like SC. Number 5 on the list, I got Penn State in year 10 of the James Franklin era. We're talking about putting together his best team probably since he's been at Penn State. You know he's got the defense to go do it. You know Nick Singleton and Katron Allen can run the ball. And you know that Drew Allar is really talented. But he's going to be put through his paces this year as Penn State expects to be in this conversation to play for the conference championship. I really think this is important to point out. Penn State won the Rose Bowl last year. And the reason I think it's important to actually point that out is they were the 3rd best team in their own damn division. That's what happens when you got Ohio State and Michigan in your division. One of the other reasons why I'm so excited to see the Big Ten abolish these divisions. They suck. They have prevented us from having really outstanding conference championship games. But now Penn State has an opportunity to just get one before we do all of this. They got to get past Ohio State, Michigan, in addition to the rest of their schedule. Number 6, I got Alabama here. The SEC no longer belongs to thee. With 2 new coordinators, right? A quarterback derby, LSU, Tennessee resurgent, and the Bulldogs busting college football's head to the white meat. This is a bet on Nick Saban. Now, are we in the twilight of Nick Saban's Alabama? I don't know. But it ain't noontime, okay? It ain't afternoon. We're heading towards evening because we're talking about a football coach who's approaching 70 in October and has been sustained excellence since 2007. I'm really interested to find out which one cracks first, the rest of college football, or can Nick Saban really do this? Can he overhaul the defense, the offense, have a quarterback derby where we don't think that the best player in football is an Alabama quarterback for the first time in some time, right? And still go win not just an SEC championship, but a national championship. We'll have to find out. If you are bullish on Alabama, you are bullish because of Nick Saban. If you are bearish, it's because of everything else. But college football is still the only sport where a head coach can have this much influence on a program's winning and losing. Number 7, I got Tennessee here. I really liked Hendon Hooker and his play last year. I always thought that Joe Milton was the more talented quarterback. It's about, could he do the things that Hendon Hooker could, which is complete the throws that are there to be completed and throw it tremendously accurate downfield. We know that he's got a howitzer for an arm. We know that he is capable of moving around. We know that he is every bit of 6'5", 230. It's about, can he operate with the level of proficiency that Hendon Hooker could when he led Tennessee to its best season since basically 2004. And we got a Tennessee team that, every year they run the gamut because they have Alabama as their crosser. But they have not made a New Year's Six Bowl since 2004, and they haven't had an 11-win season since last year, since 2001. Oh, both of those things were true, I guess. Well, they had a New Year's Six Bowl last year when they played against Clemson in the Orange Bowl. So it had been that long, I guess, is the point that I would raise there. But can they do it again? That's what's more interesting, especially as Josh Heupel has now solidified his place as Tennessee's guy. And this is the last year for which they don't have to contend with OU and Texas, which is also a game that I'm very excited about because, Josh Heupel not only was quarterback at Oklahoma, but he got fired and made way for Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. So there might not be any love lost there for those of y'all that aren't familiar. Number 8, I got Clemson. I think they're 8 here because Clemson play caller Garrett Riley had Texas Christian humming last year. Last year, Clemson did not have a 3,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rush in the same year. It's the first time they haven't had that since 2019. Now I'm looking at Texas Christian, who had both of those things last year, 3,600 plus from Max Duggan and 1,500 plus from scrimmage with a 1,399 on the ground from Kendre Miller. I think what Garrett Riley does for them is give Cade Klubnik and Will Shipley those opportunities. I think you're going to see a 3,000-yard passer and you're going to see a 1,000-yard rusher. It might be Shipley. It might be Kobe Pace. We'll see what that looks like. Number 9, I got Utah, the 2-time defending Pac-12 champions, the 2-time defending conference champions. People keep forgetting. The Utes are still looking to earn their first college football playoff invitation, but you beat up on USC twice in the same year, and nobody wants to give you any credit. I think they're going to have to run the table and win the Pac-12 championship to get their invitation because we've always kind of looked at the Pac-12 as being an also-ran in this college football playoff era. Because basically since Oregon, they haven't had anybody that we had to care about in the college football playoff. And Washington got beat 24-7 in 2016. But also it was a game for which Alabama did not play its best. We know this because Lane Kiffin got fired after this game for calling plays that they hadn't even run in practice. And they still were able to beat Washington. What I'm saying here is Utah's going to have to prove it. And they need to play this season like they're still in the Mountain West as opposed to being in the Pac-12 if they expect to be in contention for a national championship. And remember, Kyle Whittingham has done this before, right? 2008, Utah, outstanding. Beat Nick Saban, right? In a bowl game, 2008. Number 10, I got Florida State here. Guy to watch is Jared Verse and Jordan Travis. Jared Verse on the edge, Jordan Travis at quarterback. After beating up on my Oklahoma Sooners in the Cheez-It Bowl, they got my entire attention. Plus, Mike Norvell is outstanding. I've known Mike Norvell since he was a grad assistant at the University of Tulsa, and I was an undergrad. Outstanding football coach. Excited for him. This might be Florida State's best opportunity to win a conference championship since 2014. And the first of his tenure, Florida State would like nothing more than to take over the ACC, as it looks like they're making loud noises about leaving it. Number 11, I got Washington coming off an 11-win season. One of the best offensively statistical years in University of Washington history, and Kalen DeBoer's year 2022 was outstanding. I really loved what Michael Penix Jr. was able to do, 4,600 yards through the air. Lefty quarterback. Somehow people decided that lefty quarterbacks can't play, and then I point out all these lefty quarterbacks that could: Steve Young, Tua Tagovailoa. I can keep going down the list. Tim Tebow, even though, my goodness, I never wanted to use Tim Tebow to make my argument stronger, but here we are. Anyway, Washington at number 11. Number 12, I got the University of Texas. I'm going to spend a little time here. If you were paying attention to my top 25s over the course of the year, for which I put out something like 20 a year, right? You'll see my way too early top 25 had Texas 12 spots lower, but they have climbed to number 12. The reason is it's not just that Quinn Ewers is healthy. It's that he's in outstanding shape. You could see his cheeks are chiseled. You could see they have him on a program, nutrition program. You could see he's been in the weight room, and everybody else around him has also gotten to be a year older. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, he's a year older. Jalen Ford, All-American, he's a year older. Jonte Cook is coming in to give them a little bit of punch on that wide receiver group. A.D. Mitchell is expected to be a game changer for the University of Texas, and that's before we talk about Xavier Worthy and that really talented backfield. I understand Bijan Robinson is an all-time player for the University of Texas, but that running back room has guys in it that can produce. It's about, can they produce at the level collectively that Bijan was able to produce for the last 2 years at the University of Texas? And Steve Sarkisian understands this is what he came to Texas for, is to have these sort of expectations where they're expected to win the Big 12 championship, where they're expected to carry their weight in the SEC in the years to come. And I really like a head coach that is embracing all of the pressure that comes with being asked to go win championships. He's done that. He understands how to do that. And we all know what kind of a developer of quarterbacks he is. And let's not forget Quinn Ewers, at one point, #1 player in all of high school football and a 5-star recruit. Number 13, I got Oregon. Really loved the hire of Willie Stein. He's going to be tasked with not breaking Bo Nix, who found some form that we never seen from that dude before Oregon last year. And frankly, there's no Georgia on the schedule. But there's no 49-3 whooping on the schedule. Maybe they get to 11 wins. Maybe they get to 12. We'll see. Number 14, I got LSU. All right. LSU last week had players throwing hands at practice in front of media. I bring that up not because it's embarrassing, but because the last time that we heard chirping like this in 11 on 11 for LSU, it was Patrick Queen going at Joe Burrow. That team ended up going 15-0 and winning the 2019 National Championship. We know that Brian Kelly is a hell of a football coach. We know that Jaden Daniels is expected to contend for the Heisman Trophy. We know that Harold Perkins is one of the best defensive players walking, and they didn't ask that dude to do too much. They just asked that, hey, man, can you go hit people? They just run around hitting people. And my goodness, did he ever hit people against Arkansas? They have what it takes to defend their SEC West championship, but they're going to have to do it once again over Alabama's dead body. That game ain't at Tiger Stadium. You're asking a lot, I think, of this LSU program going into year 2, but hey, LSU fans think that they're a top 10 team. Far be it from me to tell you that they're not after winning that SEC West championship. Let's see you climb through these rankings. Number 15, speaking of people that might feel disrespected, Texas Christian here. Texas Christian is going to have to prove to us that they're not a flash in the pan and that they're carrying this Big 12 banner saying, here I stand. Look, Chandler Morris was the QB1 to start last year, which means that no matter how you slice this up, Texas Christian finished as the national title runner-up with the QB2 running the offense. Now, there's no Garrett Riley there. Kendall Browse has that spot. Joe Gillespie's still there, and they went into the portal heavy and hard to replenish what they lost, but they also got 4 dudes from Alabama, including Trey Sanders, JoJo Earl, and Tommy Brockemeyer. They got some guys that I really like on offense and defense, but not so much that I expect them to win the Big 12 championship because they didn't win the Big 12 championship last year. It's really hard to ignore that. Number 16, I got Notre Dame. As I wrote last month, Sam Hartman is the best quarterback Notre Dame has put on the depth chart since Brady Quinn. Quite honestly, the most prolific quarterback in Notre Dame history by virtue of what he did at Wake Forest. He went for 3,700, 38 TDs, 12 INTs in 2022. 2021 was outstanding, 4,200 pass yards, 39 TDs, 14 INTs. The best statistical year that any player at Wake Forest had since store brand Cam Newton, that would be Jamie Newman. I really think that Audric Estime is going to be up for a 1,200-yard rushing season. I think Jared Parker is going to do a great job of getting that dude the rock. It's about who's going to catch passes from Hartman. Can't wait to see what that looks like. But whomever it is, probably going to get a bunch of targets because that's the kind of offense that Parker is most familiar with. Number 17, I got UCLA. Chip Kelly needs a quarterback. That's it. He's got a derby going on right now. Ethan Garbers, Colin Schlee, Dante Moore are the 3 that we expect to be the guys that are contending for that job. It's about making the right call right away to get UCLA on the good foot. They won 8 games in 2021. They won 9 games in 2022. They could be looking at their first 10-win season since 2013 if they get this right. Number 18, I got Kansas State, defending Big 12 champions, but there's no Deuce Vaughn here. Okay. It's Will Howard or bust. And Will Howard, who is 6'5", 240, and can absolutely run, is capable of bringing them back to the Big 12 championship and leading them to a win. Also, a quarterback that's majoring in accounting has all of my respect. Also, he has time to do these things because he knows how hard it is to study for accounting, let alone what it is to study for Big 12 defenses. Number 19, I got Wisconsin here. When North Carolina coach Mac Brown said he was going back to North Carolina, the first person he called was Lincoln Riley. He asked Lincoln Riley and then Cliff Kingsbury, who would they go get as their offensive coordinator? Because he thought that they were operating at the highest level of offensive scheme in the sport. And what did he say? I want to be Oklahoma. And Lincoln Riley, Cliff Kingsbury pointed to Phil Longo and said, that's the guy I would go get. Went and got Phil Longo. And all Phil Longo has done since being at North Carolina, now the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin, is produce a player in Drake May who was generational. We're talking about a dude that passed for 4,000 yards, had 35 pass TDs, rushed for 650 yards, had 7 TDs in a season. Others that have done that: Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Marcus Mariota, Johnny Manziel, and RG3. Deshaun Watson is the only one of those guys that didn't win the Heisman. Tanner Mordecai has the goods to do just that. And if you're running that offense the way that it can run, you also understand that you got Braylon Allen and Chez Mellusi back there, who, for me, are the best couple of run backs that Longo has had since Michael Carter and Javonte Williams in North Carolina. I think you're in a really good spot with a defensively minded head coach in Luke Fickell, who's very much about Wisconsin's tradition and running the football, and also looking to extend their consecutive winning seasons to 22 in a row. It's just remarkable what they have done. I think they're going to be good in 2023. Number 20, another outlier for me, but you know what it is. I like Colorado. I think Colorado is good. I think Colorado is going to be the most remarkable turnaround since Tulane last year, right? One of the reasons I believe this is Coach Prime has done an outstanding job of really filling up that roster with dudes that can play. Okay, put it this way. Last year, quarterback JT Stroud led Colorado in passing. He passed for 1,220 yards, 7 TDs, 8 INTs. I bring that up to once again tell you, Shedeur Sanders was one of 3 quarterbacks to pass for 3,700 yards, have 40 pass TDs, 6 or fewer INTs in a year. The other guy to accomplish that feat, the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft, Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud, Houston, Texas quarterback C.J. Stroud, and the Heisman winner, Taylor Williams. I don't know why I have to keep telling people this over and over again. Shedeur Sanders can sling it. I'll give you another stat. That dude is 70-8 as a starter since high school. I don't care what level of football you play at. You win 70 games, you lose 8, you're a winner. That is what Colorado is. And that's before I start talking about dudes like Alton McCaskill, who, when he was healthy, one of the best tailbacks in all the sport. Travis Hunter's going to go both ways. I keep going down a list here on why I like this team, but it's got everything to do with Coach Prime. It's got everything to do with how he is built. He's brought in outstanding play callers in Sean Lewis and Charles Kelly. If you're not on the train, you're probably going to wish that you were on the train. I got him at number 20. Number 21, I got South Carolina. All right. Shane Beamer has been called college football's Ted Lasso. He might need to be. Because I don't know if you remember or not, but AFC Richmond got his head kicked in to start this third and final season. And they had to run a gamut too. Okay? It's like having Manchester City, Barcelona, and let's call it Juventus on the schedule going into this year, because they got at North Carolina, at Georgia, at Tennessee in the first 5 weeks of the season. And this is a second half team, right? Because they beat both of the teams that played in the Orange Bowl last year, Clemson and Tennessee, on the back end. But they're going to have to get through the front end to make this look up. I really like what they have. I love the addition of Nick Harbor. I love Spencer Rattler going into what I hope is a magic year for him. But it's going to take some things for the Gamecocks to end up where they want to be, which is playing for the SEC championship. And that means you got to get past both Georgia and Tennessee, to say nothing of, once again, their non-conference slate, which begins with North Carolina. Number 22, I got Oregon State. They were a quarterback away last year. Now they have that quarterback in former 5-star DJ Uiagalelei. By the way, I'm going to keep saying Uiagalelei because you know me and names, but there still are a large number of folks with microphones in front of their faces that are scared to say that man's name. You can practice in the mirror like me. Number 23, I got Texas Tech. The Red Raiders knocked off perennial Big 12 conference champ Oklahoma and Texas in the same year and were picked to finish third in the conference. If that doesn't make you chippy, I don't know what is. Didn't they beat Ole Miss in the Texas Bowl? Yeah, if you're Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders, you got something to show, and it is the Tyler Shuck show. I'm excited. They also got Oregon on the schedule. That ought to be fun because he was once quarterback at Oregon, led them to the Fiesta Bowl in his last year there. Okay, number 24, my Oklahoma Sooners. All right, I wrote about this early in the summer. And if I go into my woo-saw moments, y'all that have been on the show for a while understand, but it starts with, you can't give up 30 a game ever, but especially at Oklahoma, especially with Brent Venables as your head coach. Ted Roof needs to produce a championship caliber defense, full stop. Again, 30 a game, good enough for 99th out of 131 teams in scoring defense. You're always playing from behind if that's the case. Now, they went into the portal to try to make up for some of the talent deficiency that they suffered after the mass exodus that followed Lincoln Riley going to USC. But Rondell Bothroyd can play, Jacob Lacey can play, Deshaun McCullough can play. I just need you to put it all together. And I think with 36 years in the sport and 12 different stops as defense coordinator, Ted Roof knows what it means to call a really great defense. Hell, he was over there with Brent Venables when he was doing the damn thing at Clemson. I just want some of the Clemson magic to rub off on the Oklahoma Sooners. That's all I'm saying. Whatever you was doing between 2014 and 2020 at Clemson, I'd like to see it at Oklahoma. Monique Boyce, I would like to see it. That's what I'm saying, okay? Number 25, I got the Iowa Hawkeyes, who, like Oregon State, have been a quarterback away, but for the last 2 years. Quiet as it's kept, the Hawkeyes have had the second best scoring defense in the sport for 2 consecutive years. They have been outstanding. You put that defense with almost any other program, they're playing for a national championship. It's the offense that held them back. I mean, it doesn't get lower as an Iowa fan when you know that there is a clause in your offensive coordinator's contract that says he's got to score this minimum amount of points to receive his full salary. Hopefully bringing in a guy like Cade McNamara makes that a funny point by the end of the 2023 season, because Cade McNamara knows what it takes to win Big Ten championships, because he did, knows what it takes to make the college football playoff, because he did. He's also just the kind of quarterback that Iowa would love, a guy that is going to keep the offense out of bad situations and manage the game and not get in the way of the defense. The problem that I think Iowa fans and or people that are not rooting for Iowa might not get is this is the same recipe that worked at Georgia. This is the same recipe that worked at Alabama up until Jalen Hurts showed up. You can win championships with an offense that does not shoot itself in the foot and a defense that plays lights out. That's going to be on Phil Parker to try to get the best out of guys like Cooper DeJean, and it's going to be on Cade McNamara to just elevate the position for which he transferred into play.